friends. Welcome to Embracing Your Season. I'm your host, Paige Klingenfield. So today we have an amazing show for you. So behind the scenes, my producer and I get to have some pretty fun conversations, and we just thought it would be awesome to bring you in so you can hear some of the funny, goofy, as well as the failures, which we'll be talking more about today, so that you can join in all the fun. So my producer, Mike Segovia, is going to be joining me today. Thanks so much for being here.
Paige, it's always a joy.
I kind of pay you to say that though, don't I? Like,
You
are
do.
we real friends?
You do. If you can just pay me in Coke Zeros, I'm totally good.
Yes, dude. I have a
Yeah.
supply. It would be perfect. I love that.
I I need Coke Zeros. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about fails and communication fails. That's usually where it starts because communication is key to successful, healthy relationships. But when it bombs, sometimes it bombs hard. But one of the things that I love here on this show and what I always try to present is just authenticity. That's my core value. And so I'm never going to come on this show and not be authentic. And so I feel like it's important to talk about my failures, but I want to start with not feeling alone in that realm. So, can you share any experience that you've maybe had with communication failures?
Yeah, Paige, I might have had one a few days ago.
So, this might have
With
been a setup question.
yeah, kind of with you, in fact.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so backstory. So Paige and I are getting ready to go to a big conference in a few weeks in Dallas. Um, by the time this airs, it'll still be a week out. And so I was booking some guests for Paige, and some were saying yes, and some were saying no. And Paige wanted a couple guests really bad, some bigger names who I'll not mention. And so I texted Paige to give her an update, and I said, guest number one booked, guest number two booked. Now,
Mhm.
what I meant to say was that they are booked, and they
Right.
couldn't interview with Paige.
Unavailable is another
Unavail.
great word that
Yeah,
hopefully you now know.
I could have used that. Nonetheless, Paige texted me back and said, "Shut up," which
Yep,
means no way. She's like totally thrilled.
that's right.
And she goes, "I'm so excited, blah, blah, blah." And then, so by the time I read her text, I realized that how excited she was. And then I realized I was about to crush her
I know.
to let her know that no, they were in fact are booked, meaning they're not coming on your show.
Mhm.
So I basically just texted her one line. I said, "You're going to kill me." Um, and then she goes, "Yes." And I explained it to her, and she goes, "Wow, like I'm dealing with all the
That's
emotions."
right,
So
whiplash.
whiplash. So Paige, there is my
Oh,
miscommunication moment, which
mhm.
I felt like dirt, but it's all good
Oh,
because we all
well,
make mistakes.
yes, absolutely. It was obviously an honest mistake, but it reminded me of the emoji where you're like crying laughing. I felt like that was what I was experiencing. I was like so excited. I didn't even tell you this. So I told my friends, I was still at work at the time, and I had them come in, and I am so ecstatic. I'm like, guys, I know you don't know these names, but I do. And they're so huge and it's so great. And they're so pumped for me. And then 10 minutes later, I get your text. So then I had to text them because they had left. And I was like, so that's not accurate. And they were like, oh my gosh. So we were all just laughing because, again, like, what do you do? I don't blame you. It was just one of those moments where it was just back and forth. And yeah, definitely a different dynamic of emotion from 1 minute to the next. It was a ride.
It was and at that point we could have inserted wah wah
Oh,
wah
yes. That is right.
because that's in fact where it went. Now, Paige, speaking of fails, um, you were telling me about a parenting fail this week,
Mm, yeah.
and I'm kind of anxious to hear about that.
Yeah.
Paige, what happened?
Oh, golly. Okay. So let's just start out with this that again, authenticity. I love it.
Yes.
I feel like that is the best follower of Jesus I can be, as well as a counselor. Like, I fail all the time. But I feel like it's such a testimony to others to like learn and grow. But it also brings up really good learning moments for my kids. So I'm always, because usually it involves them, let's be honest. And in this case, it did. It involved my son and
Mm,
what I wanted for good kind of mess things up. And so with kid drama, I don't usually get involved. I mean, I had 2 daughters first and then 2 sons, right? So girl, I know this might be shocking, but girl drama is real and it's frequent, okay? Like, it happens and it gets
Oh,
big.
yeah.
And so
I
I
have 2
knew.
daughters, yes.
Yeah, right? You get it. I knew you just don't get involved in girl drama. But there is something about being a mom to a son. There is just a different level of maybe protectiveness or a desire to come alongside and really help support, maybe more than I probably need to. I can't tell you why, but there's just a different way that I love my son and intervene or assist than I do with my girls. So he came to me on a morning. He was getting ready to leave to go to school, and he just casually dropped a piece of information that he found out that his uh, a mutual friend of ours, the mom told. Okay, this is where it gets complicated. I need to come up with names, fake names. Stacy, let's do that, and Cody, and then Jennifer. How about that?
I like it.
Okay. So he's getting ready to go to school and he just drops on me just casually, super, super out of the blue. Hey, mom, you know Stacy, right? And I go, yeah, she's a mutual friend of ours. Stacy has a son that's in the same grade as my son. And mind you, these names have been changed for the privacy or whatever act that we have to do out there. So I've changed the names here. Um, Anyways, I was like, "Oh, yeah, we're good friends," kinda thing. He goes, "Well, she told my friend Cody's mom that she doesn't like me." I was like, really?"
Hmm.
Like, I literally was in shock because Stacy and I are friends. Like, I didn't realize that maybe my son had had a fight with her son, and so,
Mhm.
I was curious, and I said, "Okay, so why do you think that is?" And he goes, "Honestly, mom, I don't know." And I said, "Well, kiddo, like our actions have consequences and maybe you did something and that just made Stacy disappointed and, it went from there." And I said, "Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way that things are." And so that's where we left the conversation. So my son goes to school and then I'm just stewing because I'm like, what the heck, Stacy? Like, first, why would you tell another parent that you don't like my kid? Secondly, like, I thought we were friends. Like, what? And so, again, usually I would be like, I'm not getting involved. Like, are we even sure that this isn't gossip? Like, I usually do a rationale, but friends, it was 7:30 in the morning. My son comes in and drops this on me. I can tell his heart is hurt. And I hadn't had my Jesus time yet. I think that probably had a lot to do it as well. I had my coffee, but I hadn't had Jesus time. And so
Mhm.
then I don't even pray, honestly. I didn't even ask God to do what I need to do next. And so I send a text to Stacy and I want to know because I feel like that's the best way to deal with some of these situations is to ask them directly because first off,
Yes.
these are kids talking to kids and relaying
Right.
information where hello, like we have to filter everything our kids tell us. So I don't want to go off gossip. I don't want to assume things. And so I just ask random question like, "Hey, did this happen? Did you talk to Cody's mom and say this?" Well, she didn't respond back. And so I thought, okay, well maybe she's at work. Sure. My son, texts me, "Did you talk to Stacy?" I'm thinking, "Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Oh,
no." And I
no.
was like, "Yeah, kiddo, I did. I feel like we're friends, and I wanted to address this face to well, as via text directly, and, I did. I'm sorry." And he goes, "Well, Cody just called me or texted me and said that he's being yelled at by his mom." And I thought, "Oh, buddy, I'm
Oh,
so
man.
sorry.
Oh,
Like,
man.
I didn't mean to get you in trouble. I'm sorry if that hurt your relationship with Cody." I and he goes, "Mom, you just can't do that. You can't name drop." And I'm like, "You're right. You're right. I shouldn't have gotten involved," that kind of thing. But then, I get off the text with my son, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking, well, now that just verified that Stacy did actually say something. So now I'm hot again. I'm like, you couldn't even come and tell me? I directly asked you. Like, I thought this would eliminate all the gossip. And so then it was that realization of maybe we're not friends like I thought we were. So
Mm.
again, didn't pray, didn't seek the Lord's wisdom on this.
Mm.
I just said, "You know what? I'm gonna voice memo because that's better than texting, and I want her to hear my heart." So I just voice memo her, and I say to her, I was like, "Wow, I'm disappointed. My heart's hurting. I thought we were friends. I wasn't asking you
Wow.
obviously to like my kid, and if he's done something to you, I mean, I would love to know so that, we can address it at home, teaching, opportunity, whatever." Um, but I guess we're not at the same level that I thought we were in terms of friendship. So I'm saying
Wow.
all this stuff in voice memo, and I'm not mad. Like
Right.
truly grieving because I thought our status of relationship. I mean, friends, I know you're listening. You're like, wow, what a reversion back to middle school. Like, this is what this is.
I
This
know.
is literally middle school. But like, I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't get out of it. So I leave the voice memo. My son texts me back and says, Cody's mom made a mistake. It's not your fault. Like, um, it was all Cody's mom's misunderstanding. And I'm like, oh no. Oh no. So now I just sent that voice memo saying that
Oh.
Stacy did something wrong. And then it wasn't even that. Oh, friends. I was like sweating. I was like, oh, well, what am I
Wait, wait,
gonna do
wait.
now?
Wait. You already hit send? Like, you
Oh, you know I did. I
oh my
hit
gosh.
send and I was righteously justified in my mind. I was like, "Yep, there you go." Like, obviously, it is established we're not friends. It breaks my heart because I thought we were.
I'm dying right now. Continue.
I know.
I am oh my gosh.
It's the worst, isn't it? I feel so embarrassed, and I am discussing this on national, podcast right now. Anyways, so I think it's done, and I'm like, "It's gonna be a hot mess." Well, then Cody's mom calls me. Cody's
Oh.
mom calls me, and I'm like, "Oh, Lord, it has just hit the fan." So I don't know what to expect, and she immediately starts apologizing. "I'm so sorry. I misunderstood. Like this, I shouldn't have just said that." And she was actually trying to make a teaching moment for her kid that we make our own decisions about our friends, and not allow other people's interpretation or opinions to influence us, which is a beautiful life lesson for kids. Unfortunately, what her twofold, her kid told my kid. And secondly, it wasn't even my kid that was talked about. So Stacy literally never said anything about my child. Oh, man. So
Wow.
yeah, Cody's mom and I, we're best friends now because I also apologized, and I was like, "I'm sorry I stirred this up. I was just really trying to figure out what's truth and then using it for teaching." And then, I mean, what do you do with that? Like, how do you walk away and view yourself as an adult after an occasion like that? It's
Oh,
just
it's happened to all of us, and it's interesting, Paige, because, like, when you're in the moment, sometimes you say, "Okay, I just wanna take a step back for a minute,"
mm,
"Where's my Bible? Should I pray?" And but it just gets so intense,
yes.
and then this fire comes out of you like a parent. It's happened to me before, and then you just fire off, and
Yeah.
then and then it's just on, and then this misunderstandings start happening left and right, so,
I know.
um
I know. And that's I think my biggest frustration is that I was literally trying to bypass the miscommunication. I wanted to go to her directly and say, "Did you say something? If you did, I'm not asking you to change your mind. I just want to know so I can talk to my kid about it." But what ended up happening is that it did become a personal hurt for me that instead of just giving it space, um, I continue to push in through my emotional reaction. And that's
Mm.
like, dang, what a failure. There's just so many things that I wish
Okay.
the Lord would have
Yeah.
just shut my mouth. Is that a
Yeah.
possibility?
Um, I mean, he can.
Yeah, he can.
But I mean, he didn't. So, Paige, what a story.
Mm.
Um, Looking back at this story that happened to you this
Yeah,
past week,
yeah.
what would you do? What would you do differently if you can go back in your time machine? We've talked about this before, in your DeLorean
Yeah.
with Michael J. Fox, and go back to that time and see yourself from the outside, and you're looking down on Paige. Just had the conversation with your son.
Mhm.
What would you do differently, knowing now what you know?
Right, yeah. Oh gosh, that's such a good question because I s well, first, I probably would have prayed, right? Like,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
know I'm reactionary. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a fighter. I don't freeze. I don't flee. Like, I go directly to the source. So I
Yeah.
know that about myself, which is also, I mean, it's beneficial because if there is a tension in a relationship, like, I'll call it out because I want reconciliation. So that in itself is not a bad thing. But if I would have just surrendered it in that moment and just been like, Lord, what do you want me to do in this case? I think that really would have mitigated, if not eliminated, this entire thing. So again, that goes back to the whole our motivations might be pure, but dude, like, what are we thinking when we react in that frustration and anger?
Mm.
And I think, again, I don't think it was wrong of me to
Mhm.
address it directly because if I had
Mhm.
seen her outside, because we all run in the same circles,
Yeah.
that would have been in the back of my head. So asking the clarity again was not inappropriate or unhealthy. In fact, Matthew 18 tells us we go directly to
Yes.
people so that we can develop reconciliation with one another. Where I think I could have done it differently, and this is what I know this, friends, I have learned this the hard way with my daughters, is that I usually go to my kids and say, "Would you mind if I have a conversation with this person?" And then we talk it out. So I should have, and I was even thinking that in the moment when my son was telling me this. I should probably ask him, "What do you want me to do with this information? What do you think about if I talk to Stacy? Would you be okay with that?" And then I would have had to respect that to some degree if he said no. And he probably would have said no because he didn't realize that it could have been handled in a mature way. And now he knows that it was handled in a hot mess way, right? So I think I would
Mm.
have done that differently for sure.
Okay, so I was just thinking about this on my end. I'm just curious what you're thinking as we continue this dialogue. Um, okay, so you get the emotions, all of a sudden, boom. Oh, you're like, all right, I got to respond here. Um, texting a lot of texting these days seems to be the first response. But what do you
Mm,
think about a phone call? Do you think that might have helped the situation just so you heard from her? Because sometimes text doesn't translate so well. What do
yeah.
you think?
Yeah, agreed, right? Like, that's again where my leaning to the voice memo so that she could hear my heart, and I even said that, right?
Yeah.
It's just that my heart was ignorant and misinformed. So, I think there's that benefit of, yeah, if we would have just talked it out instead of me texting it to her, would have totally, again, eliminated all of this problem because she would have told me, wow, I've never said anything about that. Let me go check in with Cody's
Mm,
mom and figure out why she thinks that. So you're right. That totally could have made a difference. And again, that's our communication style today. This is why kids don't have the same communication skills that we as adults do because we weren't raised with phones. We were raised with face to face conversational
right.
skills.
Yes.
So they are losing that ability to have those hard conversations face to face. They are just using text, which allows them to actually say really hurtful things to one another and to really damage relationships because the consequences of seeing someone's reaction to your words isn't the same as if it was face to face. So doing more face to face stuff or again phone calls so there's that dialogue in real time can be super helpful. So absolutely that could have been really game changer in this situation.
Yeah. Before my next question, I just wanted to remind our listeners that you're listening to Embracing Your Season with Paige Clinging Pill. And if you're wondering who I am her producer, Mike. And this show's really cool. We drop new episodes every Tuesday. And so we have different guests. Sometimes Paige or do some solo shows. And sometimes she'll drag me on to get
That's right.
something to,
That's right. It's
to
my
get something
favorite.
out to get something off of her heart. So we do appreciate you listening. And Paige, if people want to reach out to you with questions or just different things about the show, where can they find you at?
Yeah, so you can email me directly at pageklingandpeel@gmail.com. You can find me on my website at pageklingandpeel.com. And you can also find tons of amazing marriage and family resources by Homeward. We are sponsored here at Embracing Your Season by Homeward. You can find tons of other podcasts, resources, classes, books, everything to help equip you so that you can help your family succeed. You can find that at homeward.com.
Nice, all the things. Homeward's awesome, and we love Jim Burns and his program as well.
We
Homeward
do.
with Jim Burns. Yeah, that drops every Thursday. So check that out as well. Okay, so Paige, I was thinking about this while you were talking. All right, so you're doing your voice text, and I know
Yeah.
people. I know about Paige's voice text because Paige is on the East Coast, and I'm in on a couple hours back. I'm in Colorado,
Mhm.
um, so sometimes Paige or send me a text pretty early. I'll get up, at 7, and there it is,
Yeah.
and then I'll see this big long
Like
voice
2-minute
text,
long.
like 2
Yeah,
minute one from Paige,
for the
and
verbal
there it's it.
processors, that's awesome.
Yes, you're processing.
Yep.
That's good. Okay, so you sent it. She called. Stacy called.
Yeah,
You worked
no,
things out.
Cody's mom called.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Cody's
yeah,
mom called,
uh-huh.
and you get through everything. Looking back, would you not want to send that text, or are you okay that you had sent it? I mean,
Right,
because
right.
everything seemed to work out. So, I mean, did it have to be said? I mean, that was your heart, and you weren't doing it
Mhm.
to really spite. You were just trying to get some clarification. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I think ultimately I probably would not have sent it. And here's the
Mm,
reason. There's a couple of reasons why. I think again, this could have been such a life lesson for my son and I to talk about how sometimes people just don't like you and there's not always a reason behind that, but this is how we can live authentically and in integrity for ourselves without having to draw on the opinions of others to define our worth and our values. So I think that would have been really helpful. I think also like it just shows you how when we are driven by our emotions, like how much we rely on our emotions to inform our behavior. And usually, I would say 99% of the time, at least for me, friends, like my emotions are liars. They are not always telling me truth. And so I can only go to the Lord and say, tell me truth about what I'm experiencing and feeling and whether or not it is healthy or if it is true. So again, if I would have just taken a moment and said a prayer, and that's how quick it can be, right?
yeah,
Like at one
totally.
point, I think, let's be honest, I probably did that and I probably heard the Holy Spirit say, yeah, maybe you should wait. And I'm like, nope, turn off. I'm not listening to that because I want to do this. That's the reality. I wanted to do this because it would have made me feel better. And that's not the way we should do things. And I think here's what really stinks about all of this
Mm,
is the potential of ruining a relationship, right?
mm,
Um,
mm,
but more importantly, like impacting my kid because of my behaviors.
mhm.
How often do parents take it upon themselves thinking they're protecting, thinking they're teaching or encouraging their kids by handling their kids' situation, when in actuality, we're teaching them that they're not capable of doing it on their own. We don't trust them to handle it well, and we're not allowing them to experience a failure, which ultimately is the best teacher.
Yeah.
So I'm handicapping my kids by taking over and fighting a battle that I should never fight on their behalf. And so now this has caused mistrust with my child. That's again why I sought forgiveness immediately when he said, "Did you talk to Stacy?" And I said, "Oh, dude, you're
Mm,
right. You're right." It
yeah.
hit me right then and there. I was like,
Mm,
I just broke trust with my kid. He
mm,
told me something that hurt his heart. And instead of leaning in and being with him in that moment, and we didn't have margin for that, of course, because he was on his way to school, but I took that secret he just told me and I spread it and I made it worse in his life. Like,
mm.
wow, what a break in trust that I just developed because I was relying on my desire to fight his battle or to provide clarity in the situation. Man,
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, right? But it's a good teaching moment for you, even
it
as
is. And for us
we're still
together.
learning. For you together, you're still learning. Okay, so um, there's a lot of our listeners out there right now that are totally like relating to what
I hope
happened.
so. Am I the, because I surely can't be the only one.
You're
I
not
don't,
the only one.
okay. I mean,
Be, be,
this is a
be,
fail and I own it, but
been there, done that.
yeah.
So, in regards to parents listening,
Mm.
to their kids, what are just a few practical lessons, Paige, that you think you can help them with to listen more carefully to what their kids are saying, their children are saying to them?
Yeah, yeah. I I think again for me is my son, man, he is such a sweetheart, but as he's gotten into his teen years, he doesn't always invite me into some of these hard things.
Hmm.
Um, and and now we have to build back trust so he does again. And so in that moment, I was so excited to know a piece of information about his inner life that I didn't actually take the moment to really celebrate that fact. Instead, I took um, that inner life moment, that vulnerability, that hurt of his, and tried to fix it for him. Um, when I should have brought it back later and we could have talked more about how do you heal from this? How do you grow from this? What is God trying to teach you from this? And so I think for parents out there, when your kids invite you in, no matter how big or small, those little statements of inner life awareness, take advantage of that and just be still in that moment. You can ask them questions of, well, how does that feel? Or even I love the question of how can I support you in this? What can I do to help you in this? What do you need from me? How do you want me to respond? Because now we're giving our kids the power to speak about what their needs are, and we respect them enough to follow their needs. That's powerful. That's teaching partnership, but that's also teaching them respect, that we respect them enough to be autonomous, to handle their own emotions so that we don't dictate to them what they should be experiencing. So I think, man, that's another reason why I feel like this was such a huge fail is now it's gonna probably take some time before he brings up those inner secrets, those inner hurts that he doesn't usually open up to other people about, and so that's heartbreaking for me, and the next time he does, you better know that I'm gonna sit there in that with him and be like, "Okay, what do you need from me?" And maybe it's just silence, maybe it's just listening. I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
there to
yeah,
fix it, like, he
right.
needs to fix it himself, but I have to build trust, and that's gonna take time and consistency.
Yeah, because so bad, Paige, so bad. My kids have come to me over the years and said certain things, and I'm just like dying to go, I'm gonna fix this
I
right now.
know.
And just
Gosh,
going,
yeah.
just shut up and
That's right.
listen. Just
Right.
listen. And
Yeah.
I've learned that over, trust me, I've learned that over the years. So, Paige, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate your vulnerability. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I knew this was tough for you. I didn't people listeners, I didn't actually know the full story. Paige had texted me and I knew something was up. So,
Yeah.
this is what we want to bring to you: raw
Mhm.
vulnerability. Um, Paige is just like you. She's going through these things, and these are the kinds of stories that we want to bring you. We want to be able to help you in your everyday life, in
That's right.
raising your teens and your littles, and in your relationship with your spouses, all of it.
Mhm.
So, Paige, I do appreciate. I know this was tough,
Yeah.
tough for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I
Little
do appreciate.
embarrassing, let's be
A
honest.
little embarrassing. So, any final thoughts, Paige, or anything for our
Yeah.
listeners that they can take away from our
Yeah.
conversation?
Just continue to create opportunities for your kids to come to you. And if you fail, which we all do, ask forgiveness and then ask your kids, what can I do differently next time to support you? I think those two things will revolutionize your parenting with your kid. Absolutely. And I'm talking from young age, these littles, to all the way until, they're college bound. Telling them that you make mistakes and you ask forgiveness is so validating to them
Mm,
and builds trust in them. And then going a step further and saying, what can I do in the future to do it differently? Man, I mean, just what a powerful statement. So continue to be open, create opportunities for conversations, but really lean into those moments that maybe you messed up and then you could do better next time.
wonderful, Paige. Thanks so much for having me on the show
Yeah.
today. It's always a great time. So, I hope
Appreciate
you
you.
ask me. I hope you ask me again sometime to come on because
Yeah.
I am just giddy when I do.
Yes, giddy. That's a word that grown men should start using more often. I love that. Yes. No, I appreciate you being here, Mike. Seriously, like
Thank you.
you are a dear friend and I would not like to have a vulnerable conversation like this with anyone else. I don't think I could.
Mm.
I think I'd be so embarrassed, but you are always so loving and kind to me. So thanks for what you do and being here with us. And listeners, thanks for joining us today. Again, we appreciate you joining us every week when new podcasts drop on Tuesdays. Again, Embracing Your Season is sponsored by Homeward. So we would love for you to check out not only this podcast, but also we're on YouTube. So the Homeward YouTube channel also has this podcast as well as Jim Burns, Homeward with Jim Burns. We'd love you to check that out as well. So can't wait to see you guys next week. We'll see you next time.